Hey everyone, so you might be looking at the used market thinking an iPhone 11 or an iPhone 12. They're both super affordable now, they both run the latest software, but there's actually a pretty big difference between them. And picking the right one for you, well, it's more complicated than you might think. So in this video, we're gonna break it all down. We'll talk about the design and, that big screen difference. We'll get into performance on the latest iOS 26, which I'm running on both of these phones right here. We'll cover the camera's battery life and the question, does it matter that neither of these get Apple Intelligence? We'll also talk about some things you really need to consider before you spend your money. And this isn't just based on spec sheets, this is my personal purple iPhone 11 running the latest iOS 26, which I use as a secondary phone for testing things like the beta program. And for full disclosure, I just had the battery replaced, so it's fresh at 100% health. And this is my blue iPhone 12 mini. This used to be my daily driver, but now it serves a similar purpose, running the public stable version of iOS 26. Its battery is at 86% health. And yeah, even though this is the mini, everything I'm gonna say applies to the regular 6.1-inch iPhone 12 too, since the only real difference is screen and battery size. I've checked out forums and user reviews to make sure this is a fair comparison for both models. So what was so special about these phones when they first came out, and what makes the iPhone 12, a pretty significant step up from the 11? Let's get into it. Holding the iPhone 11, it just feels classic. It has these rounded aluminum edges that are really comfortable. This design is basically the final form of what Apple started way back with the iPhone 6. But then you pick up the iPhone 12 and it feels completely different. It's sharper with these flat edges. It's a bit lighter and thinner. Honestly, this was a huge deal when it came out, and it's the design Apple stuck with for years. It just feels more modern, even now. But the biggest, most obvious difference is the screen. The iPhone 11 has a good 6.1-inch LCD screen. Apple called it Liquid Retina. It's perfectly fine, colors are good, but blacks are a little bit grayish. The iPhone 12 though, this was the first time the standard iPhone got an OLED display, the Super Retina XDR. And the difference is, well, night and day. The resolution is much higher, so text is crisper. The contrast is basically infinite, so blacks are true black. It just makes everything from watching videos to scrolling through Instagram look so much better. And one more thing on the 12, it has this ceramic shield front glass, which Apple says is way more drop resistant. So a little extra peace of mind there. When you look at them side by side, it's clear the iPhone 12 wasn't just another update, it was really the blueprint for the modern iPhone. The flat sides, the OLED screen, this is the foundation that Apple built on for the 13, 14, and beyond. The iPhone 11 feels like the last page of an older chapter. Okay, let's talk about speed. The iPhone 11 has the A13 Bionic chip and the 12 has the A14. On paper, the A14 is definitely faster. I ran Geekbench 6 on these, and the iPhone 11 got around 1,762 on single core and 3,547 on multi-core. The iPhone 12 mini scored 2,098 and 4,814. So yeah, it's a noticeable jump, roughly 30% faster in some tests, which lines up with what other benchmarks show. But what does that feel like in late 2025? Honestly, for day-to-day stuff, both are still really capable. Apps open quickly, swiping around is smooth, the A13 chip is no slouch, but you do feel that extra snap on the iPhone 12. It's just a little bit quicker to respond. And I have to talk about iOS 26 for a second. In my experience, it's been a fantastic update for these older phones. It feels so much more fluid, the new animations, this liquid glass effect is really nice. It makes older versions like iOS 18 feel, well, old. Apple's done a great job here, and it really breathes new life into both of these devices. But there's one thing that holds both of them back, and it's something you really need to know about. They both have just 4 GB of RAM. What this means is if you're a heavy multitasker, you'll see apps having to reload. Like I'll be browsing in Safari, listening to music, scroll Instagram for a bit, watching YouTube, then jump to my photos, and when I go back to Safari, the page has to reload. It happens on both phones. Now, it reloads a little faster on the 12, but the A14 can't stop it from happening. It's just a limitation of the RAM as apps get more demanding. So here's the key takeaway on performance. If you're just a casual user, the iPhone 12 is noticeably snappier. But if your main frustration with an older phone is apps constantly reloading when you switch between them, upgrading from an 11 to a 12 is not going to magically fix that. That's a RAM issue. And since they both have 4 gigs, they share the same ceiling. It's a really important thing to keep in mind. For gaming, they're still decent. I can play a demanding game like Genshin Impact on the 11. You'll see some frame drops and it definitely gets pretty warm, but it's playable. On the 12 mini, I've been playing the same game and it handles it really well, though it also gets warm after a while. For casual gaming, you'll be perfectly happy with either. Okay, cameras. In good daylight, both the 11 and 12 take beautiful photos. They both have a standard wide and an ultra wide lens. The iPhone 12 is a little bit better thanks to a feature called Smart HDR3, which can sometimes handle tricky lighting a bit better. But honestly, for your average Instagram post, you'd be hard pressed to see a huge difference. But the real story is in low light. This is where the iPhone 12 takes a huge leap forward. The main camera on the 12 has a wider aperture which lets in about 27% more light, so its night mode shots are a bit cleaner and brighter. But the massive difference is that the iPhone 12 has night mode on all its cameras. The ultra wide, the main camera, and even the front facing selfie camera. The iPhone 11 only has it on the main camera. So if you try to take a low light ultra wide shot on the 11, it's pretty much unusable. On the 12, it's a game changer. Same for selfies in the dark. For video, both shoot great 4K footage, but the iPhone 12 has another trick. It can record in Dolby Vision HDR. This basically means it captures a wider range of colors and brightness. Now, to really see the effect, you need a compatible screen like the iPhone's own OLED display or a modern HDR TV. In 2025, it's a nice feature to have, and your videos can look a bit more vibrant and true to life. But for most people, it's probably not a must-have feature, and sharing these files can still be a bit tricky sometimes. The standard video from the iPhone 11 is still excellent. Battery life is always tricky. On paper, the iPhone 11 has a bigger battery than the regular iPhone 12, and in my case, my 11 has a brand new 100% health battery, so it lasts all day and then some. I'm getting fantastic screen on time with it. My 12 mini, with its smaller body and 86% health, definitely struggles more. It's a phone you have to be mindful of, and many 12 mini users on forums agree it's the device's biggest weakness. Now, for the regular 6.1-inch iPhone 12, users report battery life that's pretty comparable to the 11, thanks to the more efficient A14 chip. So for the standard models, it's more or less a wash, but if you're buying used, the battery health is what really matters. Another big win for the iPhone 12 is MagSafe. It's that ring of magnets on the back that lets you snap on chargers, wallets, and other accessories. It's one of those quality of life features that you don't think you need until you have it. It just works. And of course, the iPhone 12 was the first iPhone with 5G. In late 2025, 5G is everywhere. So it's a nice bit of future proofing. That said, 4G LTE on the iPhone 11 is still plenty fast for most things. So I wouldn't call this a deal breaker unless you absolutely need the fastest possible speeds. Alright, let's address Apple Intelligence. Neither the iPhone 11 nor the 12 supports Apple's new AI features, and Apple has been pretty clear why it requires the more powerful neural engine and more RAM found in the iPhone 15 Pro and newer. Now, for me, is this a deal breaker? Honestly, no. Not right now. Apple Intelligence is still in its early days, kind of like a public beta. And for the heavy lifting AI stuff, I usually turn to more powerful alternatives anyway, like Gemini or ChatGPT. So while it's something to be aware of for the future, I don't think its absence should stop you from buying one of these phones today. It's also worth noting that while both run iOS 26, Apple does gate some smaller features. For example, things like spatial lock screen wallpaper, live audio transcription in notes, and music haptics require an iPhone 12 or newer. They're minor things, but it shows how Apple is starting to differentiate even on non-AI features. And it's important to remember that while my experience with iOS 26 has been great, that's not always the case for everyone with an older device. Sometimes a new update can be tough on an older battery. It's a bit of an update lottery, which is why having a healthy battery like the new one in my iPhone 11 is so important. It really gives the software the power it needs to run well. So to sum up the downsides, for the iPhone 11, the main considerations are the older dated design, the lower resolution LCD screen, the weaker low-light camera performance, and the lack of 5G and MagSafe. For the iPhone 12, the main thing to watch out for is battery life, especially on the mini model or any used device with degraded battery health. And of course, they both share that 4GB RAM limitation. So who should buy the iPhone 11 in late 2025? If your budget is your absolute top priority and you just want a reliable, capable iPhone that gets the job done, the 11 is still a fantastic value. Especially if you find one with a new battery, it's a much better experience than a cheap new Android phone. But for most people, I think the iPhone 12 is the smarter buy. The extra money gets you a significantly better OLED display, a more modern design, a much more versatile camera system, plus 5G and MagSafe. It just feels like a more complete and future-proof package. If you're using an iPhone 11 now and you're happy, especially with iOS 26, there's no rush to upgrade unless that LCD screen or the low light camera really bothers you. And if you're on an iPhone 12, you're still in a great spot. This phone has plenty of life left in it. But that's just my take. I'm really curious to hear from you all. Are you still using an 11 or a 12 in 2025? What's your experience been like? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.